Hello, good evening, and welcome to the show On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. Now, at the center of a growing national storm is the Protection of Sovereignty Bill 2026, a law the government says will defend the country from foreign interference, but one that critics argue could fundamentally reshape the relationship between the state and its citizens. On paper, the bill promises to protect sovereignty. In reality, it introduces sweeping powers. It criminalizes influencing public opinion against government policy with penalties of up to 20 years in prison. It proposes strict controls on foreign funding, targeting NGOs, civil society groups, and even ordinary Ugandans receiving money from abroad. Human rights groups warn the bill could severely restrict freedom of expression, association, and civic participation, effectively shrinking the space of dissent, leaving lingering questions like whose interest does the bill serve? To discuss this evening, my guests are Mr. Jude Byamukama, who is a lawyer from the Uganda Law Society, have Mr. Richard Bad Byamukama, also another lawyer, and the Honorable Emmanuel Wepukulu, MP-elect for Bulambuli constituency. Jude Byamukama, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, viewers. Thank you, Patrick. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Mr. Richard Bad Byamukama, thank you for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Patrick. Good evening, our viewers. It is a pleasure to be here with you today.
Honorable Emmanuel Wepukulu, MP for Bulambuli constituency, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Patrick Kamara. It is a big honor to be here. And good evening, viewers. Today I come with this stick, Patrick. Don't be scared with it. Yesterday I was in Makerere.
Okay.
Visited my professors, and then they told me this is they nicknamed me, or they gave me a new name because of this stick, that I'm the political cynometra.
Wait, you went back to your alma mater and they gave you a stick?
Yes. And they have named me the political cynometra symbol. This is a symbol of ironwood, which is Cynometra alexandri, the hardest species in Uganda and Africa as a continent.
I actually thought that probably, I was looking whether you're walking with a limp, with the aid of a stick, and I just realized you're walking so well without any limp.
No, it is a spiritual attachment. If you remember the Bible, Moses had a stick when crossing the Israelites from Egypt, and they said, when they reached the Red Sea, they said, God told him, what do you have in the hands? He said, I have a stick. And when he hit it on the Red Sea 3 times, it opened.
I have a colleague in the newsroom who is always saying that, talking about the Moses' stick. Is this what we hear?
And I've been given symbolically, I want to hit it on the political forums of this nation, so that we open doors for people.
The people of Bulambuli have brought us such a character.
Thank you very much.
This is going to be interesting. The next 5 years.
Thank you very much.
So let's go into it, Honorable Emmanuel Wepukulu. By the way, congratulations for having made it into the parliament, because it's not easy for the people to hire you. You have to go through.
Thank you very much, and it's an opportunity for me to serve my people.
So now here you can. I'm sure you will understand and appreciate that the next parliament where you're going to sit is going to be very crucial. Yeah. Probably we'll be looking into matters of transition, bills and laws that are going to be very controversial. Yes. So it looks like you as is likely to be a very impactful kind of parliament. And before you even get into it, just before you get on the eve of it, we have a bill. Yeah. The sovereignty bill. It's meant to protect the sovereignty. If I may ask just a general question, what is this bill meant to cure?
Yeah, thank you very much. So many things, because if you look at the Ugandan Constitution of 1995, we see that Article number 1 clearly talks about sovereignty of us, the citizens of our nation. That's why we gained independence from the colonial masters in 1962. But it is not enough. There are so many loopholes that were left out. And I don't want us to term sovereignty as just a mere slogan. Like the former president of USA, Barack Obama, had a slogan that said, "Yes, we can." And it spread like wildfire. It called the global world. Sovereignty for any nation should be taken as a fundamental, as a foundation for any serious nation. You have to protect what belongs to you. And where challenges, what causes governments to have to think about such a law? For instance, the government of Uganda. So many times we have had foreign interests. Not all foreigners are bad, but there are people, external forces that come in to stabilize nations. And Kamara, you have seen it on the African continent. Talk about Egypt, talk about Libya, talk about even our neighbors here in Sudan, the reign of Bashir. You know what happened? And where are they if you really looked at it?
The three countries you've talked about were led by individuals for more than 30 years each.
Yes.
What I learned from them, that after one person has ruled the country for 40 years, when they exit, those countries disintegrate.
Exactly, because they can lack.
Are you smelling the coffee?
Yeah, because, no, I am not. And for me, it is better that way that you have brought it in that angle. Because they didn't have such laws, is where problems started from. People came, destroyed Libya, they destroyed Egypt, they have destroyed Sudan, and they are no more. You see the struggles they are going through. Only that, I also have the cons or the areas for change. I think, I don't know whether you have just seen the press statement by the president today, when he said, no, we have made the law very ambiguous. Actually, he said, why are people meandering instead of looking at the policy of protecting policy decisions of these nations? Meaning that the most important decisions or policies that will be brought to the floor of parliament to be made into law to ensure good governance, they should be made by us Ugandans, not to be made in foreign capitals. You sit you sit in London, you sit in the USA, then you plan for us Ugandans.
Okay, hold on to your point. Let me come to Mr. Richard Byamukamara. I want to begin by asking you to make a submission on where you fall on the divide between sovereignty bureau or even anti-sovereignty.
But Kamara, I had not concluded my point. Where I meant that it is so ambiguous, it had certain clauses that had to be removed, like calling Ugandans who are abroad in diaspora that they are also foreigners, terming them that way. So it is something that we need to sit down, rethink, and those who are handling this bill before we start swearing in on the 13th of May, they should fine-tune things. But the president's statement this evening or this afternoon, it has fine-tuned it. We are leaving out all the financial implications. We want to just protect the policies that we shall be deciding as a nation.
Mr. Richard Bad, I just want to know where you fall on this protection of sovereignty bill.
Thank you so much, Patrick. To me, I'm a lawyer.
Okay.
I'm also a scholar of security studies. So to me, I believe the law is protecting nothing because sovereignty is already protected. The sovereignty of this country is already protected by the Constitution. So it is also protected by the international law. So unless you want to amend the existing norms originating from the Treaty of Westphalia, statehood originates from the Treaty of Westphalia. So we lived with no borders. So until the Treaty of Westphalia was formed and brought up that statehood. So sovereignty is the ability to protect internal decision making and policies, and ability to protect yourself from external threats and interference.
So this is good.
So the bill has nothing to do with that. So what it has to do is in security studies we call it securitization. Securitization is where politics goes beyond the established norms of the game. So states usually frame up issues and frame them into existential threats.
But what existential threat do you think the NRM government under General Yoweri Museveni is facing? They have just come out of an election where they got a resounding victory. Ugandans give them a huge mandate. The country is at peace from border to border. The people have just elected with such a huge mandate. So why should they be that kind of secularization?
You see, Patrick, there are issues that arise from longevity of regimes. He has talked about the regimes that have taken long in power. So there are problems that arise from longevity of regimes. So the regime becomes paranoid of its citizens. We have had regimes over the history that have had threats from immigrants. Immigrants are citizens of the country, but they go outside due to several factors. They immigrate, they go to work, they go to study, they form up as immigrants. So, and when you study the bill very well, it de-citizenizes these immigrants. So, and under the Constitution, under Article 10 of the Constitution, a citizen by birth cannot be de-citizenized. You can't remove my citizenship from me when I was born from Uganda, from Kagadi Hospital. So it is barred by the Constitution. It is impossible. So a citizen can only lose his or her citizenship under Article 14 of the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. So the citizenship that can be lost is the citizenship by registration, not by birth. So when you study it very well, so it means the threats are the immigrants. That's why the system is trying to remove citizenship from them. So you see, longevity of regimes, you become paranoid of external factors because you have seen regimes that have gone due to external factors. If you read, there is a book called When Google Met WikiLeaks. It was written by Julian Assange, referring to Google CEO Eric Schmidt.
Yes.
So page 5, when on the eve of Hosni Mubarak's ousting, so the Americans had bet on 2 horses. They were supporting the regime of Hosni Mubarak, and they were investing a lot of money.
The Arab Spring.
Definitely, they were injecting lots of money in the civil society. So it is this civil society that formed up and mobilized the citizens into the Tahrir Square. So the system is worried because it has stayed more in power.
Yeah, but you know, if they put money into civil society and people went to Tahrir Square and they came out and swept the regime off and Egypt was in turmoil, why wouldn't a country defend itself from such?
You see, Patrick, there's what we call the social contract. So John Locke and Thomas Hobbes are the famous scholars of these social contracts. You see, a government should not be paranoid of its citizens. The government should be paranoid of its citizens. It is the citizens who should not be paranoid of the government because
Richard,
they form it.
Richard,
they are the sovereign.
I'm just picking from your own submission, and you're giving examples of Egypt,
Definitely.
where the Americans had 2 horses. They are betting on Hosni Mubarak, but they're also betting on the civil society. And they're injecting money into civil society.
Definitely.
And what came out was that there was the collapse of government. And when the government collapsed, things were bad for Egypt. But if Hosni Mubarak and his people had thought about protecting their sovereignty, probably the country wouldn't have gone to the dogs like it did first.
You see, Patrick, according to our constitution, the people are the sovereign. The moment they make a social contract with you, and you don't fulfill that social contract, they can overthrow you.
But can't you make a law to operationalize that Article 1 of sovereignty?
No, not at all. It's because sovereignty is already defined by the Constitution. It is defined. You see, what the state is trying to encompass in this bill is that when citizens work with foreigners to overthrow a regime. You see, when you attempt to overthrow a regime, under the existing laws, you are charged for treason. So treason and offences against the state are already in existence.
Okay.
So by making more laws to regulate how citizens relate with the state is being too ambiguous.
So your submission that the government is paranoid?
Definitely.
Let me come to you, Mr. Jude Byamukama. Jude, both of you are lawyers and you understand this, but you know what is intriguing is that I have seen senior lawyers of government, including the Attorney General and all these people. The other day I was talking also to the Honorable Yusuf Nsibambi, another lawyer, actually he even teaches at the School of Law.
Used to teach.
Used to teach, yes. So in other words, I'm inclined to listen to them and believe them because they sit up there at their altar, at their legal altar. So what do you make you think that your colleagues, your land friends, actually think what they're providing Uganda is good for Uganda?
It's a bit disappointing because there have been, I think there is a fundamental misunderstanding, first of all, on this whole concept of sovereignty. Who is sovereign? Is it the government of the day? Is it the citizens? And who decides what's government policy? Who decides how citizens should engage with their government? Fortunately, there have been two developments which I think are important to put things in perspective. Starting with the President's letter, his public statement, where he clarifies that as far as his understanding of sovereignty and what he thinks this sovereignty bill is supposed to achieve. And he's also wondering why it meandered into issues of the constraining the ability of the private sector to operate. That's one aspect. But also the other day, the Attorney General also proposed amendments to the original bill. And they are quite major amendments. And therefore, that goes to show that there was, a misunderstanding on what is this bill supposed to achieve, and then how should it achieve it. Looking at the bill and the few discussions I've been part of, there are fears, what my namesake is calling a bit of paranoia. There are fears that, foreign influence operations can destabilize the country. And they can be, foreign influence operations can come through civil society, through individual citizens, through Ugandans living abroad. There is some sort of fear. And now, that fear is merged with this concept that if you are a lobbyist for a foreign government or a foreigner, generally you should be publicly designated. It should be known. Many other countries do have laws that have this concept of if you are an agent of a foreign government, you should be publicly registered with the state. The Americans have the Foreign Agents Registration Act. It's a federal statute. You'll find whether in Singapore, China, they all have this concept, but you see the way it works is different. You'll find in China, the Communist Party imposed the national security law on Hong Kong and has totally reversed the way Hong Kong was known to operate. Newspapers have been closed. One of the very popular democracy figures in Hong Kong, Jimmy Lai, lies in prison for the last, I think, 4 years. He was really a millionaire in Hong Kong and owned a newspaper, which was closed, and he was convicted under that national security law. Why? Because the Communist Party in China does not want him to be in communication with any foreign governments, even leaders. Now, so that's a mixture of issues. A sitting government can decide that we don't want our citizens to be in contact with any foreign governments, especially if they are hostile to our government. There's that concept that some countries have, mostly autocratic and authoritarian, leaderships, like you see in China and some other countries. Because in fact, that Hong Kong citizen, Jimmy Lai, who is in prison, was accused of trying to lobby the American and UK governments to impose sanctions or apply pressure to the Communist Party officials over the management of Hong Kong. Now, we have...
For them, they are in a very special kind of relationship right now, because I think it is in 2027 where Hong Kong, where China is supposed to take fully.
Yes, but well, they are already, de facto China has really, has more or less anyway, been in control. Then you have other countries like Singapore, they also have this concept. But when you see how it applies, for example, even in the United States, it's not illegal and it's not wrong for a citizen to say that I would like to be a lobbyist. I would like to lobby for the interests of Qatar, of Saudi Arabia, of Iran in the United States. All that you are required to do is to be publicly known and designated, so that if you are a journalist and you are publishing articles or you are airing documentaries that are favorable to Iran, that are favorable to Israel, it should be a matter of public knowledge that you are a lobbyist for a particular government. And it's not illegal. Now, when you read the 30 clauses we had in our sovereignty bill before these proposed amendments and before the president's clarification, it mixes together two irreconcilable concepts. One, the concept of if you are, for example, a lobbyist for a foreign government, you should be known. But then it goes ahead to outlaw that concept, which is very problematic. There is nothing wrong in principle for the government of South Sudan.
You can register as a foreign lobbyist, but the law does not want you to exist as a foreign lobbyist.
Yes, which shows that there was, I think, a bit of a misunderstanding by the people drafting this bill on how that concept should operate. It should not be illegal, even for a Ugandan citizen, to be a lobbyist, whether for the American government or the British government or whoever. All that should be required is that you should be known, so that you do not mislead the public and you do not engage in any efforts to influence public opinion, as if you are doing so as an ordinary citizen acting for the common good of your country, yet you also have a private, maybe commercial interest.
So now, after stating all that, Jude, I just want you to go for the bullseye. What do you think this is all about?
I think this is when there is a fear that increasingly a number of Ugandans are trying to make the case in various international fora that the sitting government should be pressured about its human rights record, for example.
You're talking about Bobi Wine.
So, of course, you have Bobi Wine in the United States. You have a lot of political prisoners we have in Luzira. Some of them, the courts of law have ordered should be released. Others are even detained without trial. There are some young men, I think, around. So there are significant issues. And you see, what a citizen is supposed to do, if the systems within their country completely cannot work, and if as a citizen I believe I'm being suppressed and I have nowhere to turn, I can't go to the courts of law. I'm detained. I can't apply for bail because even magistrates are scared of giving bail to a citizen charged with a misdemeanor. A citizen is locked up, cannot even be allowed to go and bury his wife, and is charged with, an offense which is really a misdemeanor, the smallest, the pettiest of offenses. And so that citizen cannot get refuge from the courts of law. That citizen has run out of options within the country. What do? They are going to start pleading for external assistance about their situation. And even if we go into the political history of this country, Ugandans in the diaspora, Ugandans in exile, have changed the course of history of this country. So there is, I think, there is a fear, which I think probably we need to discuss it in the candid terms on how it should be mitigated. But there is a
Emmanuel Wepukulu, Uganda, as it's standing on the international scene, is looking bad. We are more or less like a pariah state. When you look at yourself as a government in the mirror, I think you get scared of what you see.
I'm laughing at my brothers on how they are talking about fear, about paranoia. And you asked, I think, one of the councils here, that why should the government be in paranoia? Yet they have been democratically voted with 72% of the vote. Patrick Kamara, you and me know very well how the NRM party mobilized for the president, how the president himself moved with PDM activities. And I'm telling you, we used the BVVK machines, especially for us in Bulambuli. Let me speak for my constituency. And people voted for President Museveni. And when I interacted with some of the voters in the communities, they said, please don't even waste time to ask President his vote, because the man has just given us investment capital. We are going to vote for him. We are going to vote for NRM government. And they compared that with the manifesto of other people that were giving. Now, when my brothers start saying we are in fear, that is why we are bringing this bill, Patrick, I think it is, we just want to strike a balance. Or we want to make it clear for all people of foreign interests that this time they are not going to come and then fool us. Allow me just read for you the statement that was released by the president. I'm just reading one paragraph, especially the conclusive paragraph, because it is like what we are discussing now. It is what was put in the draft. You know, you don't discuss a draft, you discuss the final law or the final bill that is going to be signed by the president. And the president this evening wrote and said, I have talked to Honorable Hamson Obua, that is the government chief whip, the chairpersons of the relevant parliamentary committees, to make the bill concentrate on the sovereignty of policy decision-making and not to meander in the areas of the freedom of private enterprise, transfers, or private money transfers, or church donations. And in his final paragraph, where he quotes even the Bible, Kamara, he says, with regard to those who want to influence others, go back to Jesus. He said in the book of Matthew chapter 5, verse 16, that let your light so shine before men, that they see your good deeds and praise your Father in heaven. Influence people by example and not by coercion or manipulation. And that directly goes to some of these...
So what does that... okay, hold there.
Yes.
Mr. Richard Bad Biamokaba, what does that make of the legal team of government, including the Attorney General? When they speak, we are inclined to believe they are the legal minds of government, but as if the president is saying, you know what, you're bringing in things that shouldn't be there. Is there some kind of confusion? We seem to be living in an era of confusion.
No, you see, after the unpopularity of the bill, I think the government has quietly made some amendments, and the power plays are taking shape. So what I want to tell my brother here, that my colleague is going to Parliament, is becoming a policymaker, that I'm also, I subscribe to NRM. I've benefited from NRM. I'm a graduate of UPE. So I subscribe to NRM, but what we are discussing now, it is about policy. And I credit the NRM for creating room for legitimate misunderstanding. Yes, so we are, yes, we are now in legitimate misunderstanding between me and him and the drafters of the bill. So that is a credit to the regime.
That's a healthy kind of conflict.
Definitely, there is a misunderstanding about the bill, because I'm a member of the NRM. The bill is brought by the NRM. I'm a member.
When you talked about the
I do.
normal stay of power,
You see,
point of information.
you see-
Can I give you information? my
Pa-
brother?
It is okay.
Okay. Earlier on, you said that we're in paranoia, people have overstayed in power, you compared other nations. But let me tell you, my brother, and viewers outside there, I think we should all realize, especially African states, that the problem is not about overstaying in power, but what you are doing for the nation. For example, the former president of Singapore, he stayed for 31 years. Lee Yuan, I think Lee you from 1959 up to 1990 for 31 years. And do you see the transformation he brought to Singapore?
And you have stayed for 40 years. Can we? Where is
You see,
Singapore?
listen, longevity of
And you have-
regimes.
yes, and
Hold
you
on,
Okay.
hold on at that. Longevity of regimes. When a regime takes long in power, it becomes its longevity becomes more uncertain. It has been proved over time. You see, he's talking about the percentage during elections and all that. I will give you examples. Bashir was overthrown not less than a year. He had won an election with over 90% in the election. Hosni Mubarak had won an election with over 70%. So as the regimes take longer in power, their overstay becomes uncertain. So there are grievances that arise within the population, within the army, and within the foreign actors. So it is not about the percentage and all that. So it is about how the regime has to stay longer, how the regime has to control the population and the financial inflows that could destabilize the nation. You see, more often, the recent coups that have overthrown regimes that have overstayed, like in Gabon, the regime of Ali Bongo, or is it Omar Bongo or Ali Bongo? One is son to the other. So the junta that overthrew Alpha Conde in French Guinea. So the financial inflows, these coups have been a characteristic of external actors like the Wagner or the Russian mercenaries. So the government is worried that money may come in. We are in a period where we are supposed to discuss transition. So money may come in, and
What make you think we are likely to discuss transition about now?
you see, we can't run away from reality that
Which is the reality?
Jaja is old. We are seeing him. He's old. He says it each and every day. So, and you are seeing on the streets, the successors are already jubilating and preparing themselves to take over. So they speak in the open. So they are no longer hiding. So we are discussing transition on how the transition should occur. So more often, external actors may take this opportunity to.
So Richard Byamukama, you believe the transition process is on?
Definitely, because when you see the dynamics, the dynamics shape the political arena. So the other day, this week, they were celebrating the birthday of the much anticipated the much anticipated successor of President Museveni. So they are trying to. I'm one who believes he should be, because he's a citizen. So, but through the democratic ways. So they are trying to show him to the population and mobilizing the population to the cause. So that is transition is taking shape out there. So the foreign actors may come out and stage a coup and overthrow the entire process. So the government is worried about.
So you think that in this transition there's going to be the end of an era of Museveni Senior and the coming of an era of Museveni Junior?
Definitely, we have seen that happen in Gabon, Omar Bongo to Ali Bongo to Omar Bongo. We have seen that happen in several countries all over. So unfortunately, it didn't happen in Egypt with Gamal Mubarak and elsewhere.
Okay, let me come to you, Mr. Jude Byamukama. You know, when I saw heads of agencies and departments of government, including the Bank of Uganda come to the parliamentary committee to give their views that were so opposed to this sovereignty bill. First of all, it gives me some kind of, I should say, pride that to see that Ugandans are speaking out. And some of the people who are speaking out are people with a lot of expertise in the sector of economy and finances. And maybe you can also credit the government that, look, even though we are having this bill, we have called on Ugandans to come, criticize us, enrich us, tell us what you think before it passes. So you can be critical, but also you shouldn't fail to recognize that the government opened up and said, let's come and we talk, and people have been talking.
Well, Patrick, I don't know whether it's that the government opened up. When we look at the speed with which Parliament wanted to process this bill, it is the first reading happens, it's referred to a committee, they quickly try to schedule the second and third readings to pass it. What you can say is that this time, the citizens were found wide awake. And probably what caused this is that this bill, without the amendments which have since been proposed, and then without the input of the president, this was a bill that was basically going to cripple the entire private sector as we know it, the financial services sector, religious institutions, because you see, with the honorable exception of religious institutions which are homegrown. So that means you don't count Christianity, don't count Islam, don't count just those which are Ugandan based. Almost every religious institution in this country has ties outside Uganda. But someone drafts a legislation that says if you are getting weather instructions from a foreigner, then you are a foreign agent. And I don't think they fully appreciated the gravity of those clauses that they had proposed in the bill. And therefore, a number of people quickly realized that this is going to cause us problems. Of course, where money is involved, when you want to get the citizens to pay attention, just try to regulate their financial dealings. They'll wake up. And that is why everyone woke up. I don't think, if those clauses about financial inflows were out of this bill, obnoxious and autocratic as this bill was, it could have easily passed without much public debate. But what happened here is the churches realized that actually, even though they may not be the express target, they can eventually be a target. Then you have, of course, the Interreligious Council quickly comes up with a statement. So most of those people who came
had selfish interests.
Of course. Then, of course, we have a significant population. The capital inflows, what Ugandans remit from the diaspora, I'm told, is it over $2 billion? That's significant. People we have so many Ugandans who are trying to work out a living in Dubai,
so the biggest chunk of Uganda's foreign exchange is coming from remittances.
Yes, and no wonder that the governor, Bank of Uganda, obviously would not keep quiet with the threat that this bill posed to our balance of payments position in terms of remittances. We need dollars into our economy. And then you have a law that is saying if you are receiving dollars from outside, you might be a criminal. That's the import of these clauses, and therefore it was, of course, it was very unfortunate that this bill was ever presented to Parliament in the state in which it was, and then so you have this pushback from a wide segment of society that even though the consultations were hurried, because remember, Parliament, the two joint committees had really scheduled not less than barely a week to receive memoranda from the public. But suddenly, they are hit with an avalanche of memoranda from religious leaders, the academia, because how are you going to do an international academic project headquartered in Makerere University?
Especially research is fully funded.
You are going to receive funding from the United States. You are going to receive funding from United Kingdom, from wherever. Academic researchers do collaborations. You are receiving funding, you have become an agent. As lawyers who are in private practice, we have clients outside Uganda. They send us money to register for them businesses. Or they need legal advice on how to come and set up in Uganda. So we give them opinions, and of course we invoice them and they pay us. And then suddenly we need to register because we have become agents. And then obviously what left a very sour taste, this whole idea of calling Ugandans resident abroad foreigners was a huge own goal. I cannot imagine this. I don't think that I've heard of any country which has such a provision. I do not know who thought about that, and even forgot that there are Ugandans in the civil service, in foreign civil service, stationed in the embassies abroad. And that definition also means that even people who are deployed in embassies of Uganda abroad in service of the interests of Uganda, we are also going to be agents, foreigners.
Before I go to Mr. Wepukulu, you two are lawyers, and the way how you're poking holes on this bill, what makes you think about the drafters of this?
I think, you say there are two things.
Yes.
The draftsmanship clearly was very reckless. There was a simple objective, according to President Museveni, there was a simple objective that he wanted achieved about ensuring that policy making within the country is not dictated by foreigners. And I don't even know, by the way, whether that requires a law, honestly. Because it's a very basic concept. So probably the fear in the bill that needed to be addressed would be what they call foreign influence operations. If you have elections, maybe you don't want foreign governments funding candidates, but we already have a whole law, the Political Parties Organizations Act, already has a clear framework that's supposed to govern that. So all you do is you tweak that framework and change a few things.
But you know, why would government fear foreigners? When you look at, for example, our whole economic setup, the economic architecture is more or less foreign owned. The banking system in this country is all of it is foreign.
No,
when you look at the telecom, yes?
I think, Patrick, we don't have to be I find that a populist argument. All countries have a legitimate interest in not wanting foreign influence to overrun how a country functions, for sure. It's a fair point, and that wouldn't be the problem. But what we had here, the letter and spirit of this bill, is the problem. But I do not think there is any country which wants a situation where civil society organizations, for example, maybe receive funding from foreign governments and then bring it into the country and then maybe engage in regime change operations. Eastern Europe has, many small countries in Eastern Europe have been victims of this kind of thing.
Okay, Jude Byamukama, Richard Bad Byamukama, and Honorable Emmanuel Wepukulu. Gentlemen, we're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back. Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guest tonight, I have Mr. Jude Byamukama, I have Mr. Richard Bad Byamukama, and the Honorable Emmanuel Wepukulu, MP-elect for Bulambuli constituency. So, yes, let me also begin with you, Emmanuel, on this issue. I know probably the whole thing has changed because the president has written a statement and probably he's taken out some of those controversial clauses. And I'm wondering, it looks like the president is doing the work of his Attorney General, his deputy, and the whole legal team.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for recognizing that. But the president is our father, is the fountain of honor. So he has to monitor and then put things straight. And he has not weakened the sovereignty bill, but instead he has strengthened it in a way of striking clarity and balance, because it has been very ambiguous. I don't usually like discussing post-mortem reports, but let me mention where there was another problem. I think the youth, we have, according to Uganda Bureau of Statistics, I think the youthful population is about 40%, making up this country. And the rate at which and the unemployment. You know how many of our citizens are going to the Arab world to find the cheyo here and there. So if we were to pass it the way the drafters had made it, then we are going to increase on the unemployment in this country. And that's when we are going to have more of the Genesis. And I think you remember when the president talked about, gave us a public brief about people had even hired Genesis from Kenya to come, and then he caused riots here, and then they were talked to, and then they went back. Therefore, the bill in its first draft, and that is why it is called a draft, for heavenly sake, it was not passed into law. But also the financial implications. You are asking why president is doing government work for some of the responsible people who are in particular offices. Even the governor bank of Uganda, I like the precision at which he articulated financial implications of this bill. But he was saying, in his conclusive remarks, he was saying that this bill is not good for a country which has like national debt, which has so many financial issues. And I wanted him to conclude, or if not, he should be called by the president or to the parliamentary committees again, and then he advises us on how then can we move out of the financial state we are in. Because you know our national debt is at almost 130 trillion. Since we have such a brilliant Bank of Uganda governor, then let us bring him on board. Now the legal committee, including the Attorney General and the rest, the parliamentary, the Committee of Legal Affairs, the Committee of Defense and the Internal Affairs, they should also be called upon that when they were drafting all this. I don't know why, maybe they were trying to impress, or they didn't understand the directive or for example, the enlightenments or the suggestions that the president had put across. Because we have seen what is happening. I was just giving other African countries Kamara, and me, I don't want to see it in Uganda. You have seen even what President Ruto of Kenya has been talking about foreign influence and how they come up.
But this let me bring this to, thank you, Emmanuel. Let me bring this to you, Richard Bad. You know, we have Uganda's lead opposition leader in the United States and other parts of the world. And the other day, I was taking pictures at Capitol Hill in D.C.
Yes.
Is this it that is making maybe some people fear? This is about politics, about possibility of the Honorable Chagulanyi and people like him getting money from the Americans, from the British, and all others, and the Chinese, to come and maybe cause havoc in Uganda. Is that the fear?
No, not at all. But he could be one of the targets of the bill, but it is not targeting him in entirety, because there are provisions again about Ugandans who go abroad and become foreigners. You see, when I'm born from Uganda, I'm a citizen by birth. So I can go to the United States and stay there for over 30 years. My citizenship remains. You can't, my citizenship does not cease. It is inherent, mm-hmm. Yes. So the only citizenship that can be scrapped off is citizenship that has been acquired by registration. So that is what the Constitution says. But so as long as I'm a Ugandan, I will go to the United States or Germany or UK, and I will do the transactions, and there is no law that will prohibit me. So if the law passes, and it is that.
I remember I'm told the Honorable Olaro Tunu at one point could not get a Ugandan passport, was considered a foreigner, even though he had been in this country, and of course he was Ugandan. and he was working with the United Nations at the highest level, which also caused him to miss out. Potentially, he could have been even a Secretary General.
You see, that is politics anyway. So, but a citizen by birth, according to the Constitution, the citizenship cannot cease anywhere in the Constitution. So even if the law passes, even if the law does what, so the citizen who was born from Kagadi Hospital or Mulago,
like yourself,
definitely. So my citizenship cannot be erased by any law that passes, whether it is the sovereignty bill or that. So it cannot extinguish my citizenship. So about Kyagulanyi being in the United States, he could be one of the targets because he's a political actor, he's a president of a political party, and the bill is about limiting funding of the political party or limiting funding that is coming to manipulate the politics of Uganda. So he could be affected in one way or the other, but the bill is addressing a number of issues, a number of factors. There are threats, the immigrant threats. You know, when Ugandans Ugandans leave Uganda because maybe they are seeking asylum abroad because of political persecution, like the Stella Nyanzis, the Kakwenza, so they could be targets of this bill, of this law, because when they go abroad, they become critics of the regime because of the nature of how the regime treated them. So they could be targets. So the bill targets a number of people or a number of issues and a number of interests, because foreign interests in states is real. So as a student, as a scholar of security studies, I have seen countries dictating on how states should be run. But that is minimal when you have a functioning government. So that is more visible in fragile states like South Sudan or Central African Republic. So I have had a chance of visiting many of these fragile states around here. So I know how they operate, and they are victims of direct foreign manipulation. But in a stable country like Uganda, foreign interest or foreign dictation of policies is not even possible, because policies are determined by the executive or the parliament, so and regulated by the judiciary. So in a stable democratic state like Uganda, there is no need of a bill like the sovereignty bill, because, Patrick, I will give you an example. In South Africa, when apartheid was being introduced by the whites, it became institutionalized by the law. So
it was legal.
Definitely. South Africans were being segregated under the law. So the law was very clear that you are supposed to get education that is separate from that of the whites. You are supposed to stay in Bantustans. So it was institutionalized.
So in other words, something can be legal but not right.
Definitely. So but when people are quiet because the army, the police, the intelligence or repressive laws are everywhere, that is not peace, okay. That is not democracy, but it is terror. So okay. We should not act as those authoritarian states like North Korea or Cambodia and all those authoritarian states. So we are a democratic state. Let the people be the sovereign.
So Jude, what do we learn, or what kind of seeds have been sown in the finding Ugandans in departments and ministries, the agencies of government, coming to express themselves the way they did? Does that mean now that we're entering another era where the elite are going to be fighting back, because now they are learning that when you speak, maybe the government can listen, because how they came in, I think this was unprecedented.
I think this is more about, like I already stated, when the elite see that their money is likely to be touched, they may need to disclose their financial dealings to the state. That's when they wake up. I still think this bill, with all its oppressive clauses, could easily have passed if they had stayed away from just two concepts. that designation of Ugandans outside the country as foreigners, if it wasn't in initially, and then this whole idea of trying to now regulate and monitor private remittances of money into the economy. If those two concepts were not involved, I strongly suspect that this bill would have passed. Parliament has enacted very many oppressive and in some cases absurd pieces of legislation, and they have passed. And the people move on with their lives until they are eventually affected. We also have we have laws which we inherited since independence, some of which don't make a lot of sense, but they are there. So I think we shouldn't read too much into this. While one would want to think that this should be a lesson to the elite and to other people that you know, we need to pay closer attention to the bills that are processed by Parliament and give them input.
What do you make, what is the significance of the 11th Parliament that has just a few weeks to expire?
2 weeks, in fact.
Yeah, 2 weeks to expire. And here they have a huge bill to turn into law, and yet majority of them are not even coming back to the House.
Obviously, that is...
Isn't it their time for them to say, maybe let's leave a legacy, or they say it could be their time, let us cash in?
No, I think it's, I don't want to presume or make allegations, but honestly, it's in very bad taste for a parliament that is left with barely 10 days to be trying to process such a wide-reaching piece of legislation. Their mandate is already coming to an end. We have already elected new representatives. And this is a bill which required the citizens to be given the opportunity to engage. We have bills which spend almost 6 months being processed. There was no hurry, first of all. There was no hurry. There was no foreigner threatening to take over Uganda next week or the other week. So it was simply a strategic own goal by the people behind this bill. It was a grave mistake. And I think it's very unfair for the outgoing parliament to be trying to hurriedly process a bill of this significant nature, and one which clearly is very unconstitutional. But maybe I wanted to return to the subject of this whole issue of foreign influence, and whether it's okay, for example, for former presidential candidate Bobi Wine to go to Capitol Hill to maybe lobby congressmen in the United States on how they should approach issues in Uganda. In principle, I don't think that should even be illegal. Government obviously also does it, for sure. It would be absolutely irresponsible if the government of Uganda was not paying any lobbyists in Washington, D.C. But we know that government does. And it's not a crime and it's not wrong. Because if government wants also to make its case to the international community, sometimes they're going to need lobbyists also outside there to guide them and to make their case. We have seen how DRC has made its case to the United States over the civil war in Eastern DRC and the players involved. So there is a sense in which you cannot avoid the use of foreign lobbyists anyway. And therefore, it would be very unconscionable for the Ugandan government to try to outlaw and demonize lobbyists who may be based in Uganda, while it also needs the services and pays for them for lobbyists in other countries. That would not be right. And then even when it comes to politicians, it may not obviously look so well when a presidential candidate appears to be making his case to maybe another foreign country. But again, it has a context which we cannot pretend we don't know about. But what about the National Resistance Movement, for instance? I know for sure that the National Resistance Movement sends its cadres, some of its MPs, staff at the Secretariat, for example, to China, to go and benchmark from the Communist Party of China. They send their cadres to Russia. They send their cadres to South Africa. They have got collaborations and, you know, goodwill relationships with various countries and other political parties. So I don't see why it should be right if it is done by the ruling party, if it sends its cadres to China, to Russia, but it is evil and bad and criminal if it is done by opposition political parties. So it shouldn't be that way.
Emmanuel, you are benchmarking from the the Chinese Communist Party and the Korean DPRK. Is that where you benchmark?
No, that is not true. And, I don't want, I really feel disturbed when I see a colleague, the colleagues on the panel, or even you, Patrick Kamara, trying to direct as if this bill is targeting Honorable Bobi Wine. It is not. We had about 8 candidates who were on the presidential ballot. Even the region where I'm coming from, Bugis sub-region, we had the Honorable Nathan Nandala Mafabi, we had Maimane Munyagwa of Lusania, we had the other candidates who participated in the presidential elections, and they lost. They admitted, even my brother here, Richard, who is putting on very blue colors, is showing the direction or the attachment of a certain affiliation to a certain party. But no.
But really, Emmanuel, do you really want to go that? You really want to go that low?
To be honest, he has mentioned a very pertinent point that in a country where there is stability and democratic maturity, like Uganda, where every 5 years we carry out elections, and then people present their manifestos, their vision for where they want to take this country for 5 years, and then the citizens of Uganda choose out of the 8 or 10 manifestos presented by different presidential candidates, including us at constituency level. Myself, I was in the battle with about 7 candidates for primaries and then also in the final elections. But they chose me because the citizens have the ability to choose who they want to be. And people who are even, my brothers are talking about transition, parties, dinners, and then Kamara, you think the transition is imminent, it is coming. Let me tell you, for us as the NRM, we are still supporting one candidate. And by the way, President Museveni, over and over again, he has shown you, when he's going to the pavilion to speak, you don't know why he runs. From where he's seated to where he's going to speak from, he's showing you that my people, I am still around. As long as you are going to vote for me, I am here. But the day you will vote for someone else massively, I am ready to go to Chisozi and then look after my cows. Therefore, we are in a democratic country. Whether Bobi Wine goes to Capitol Hill, whether he goes to London, whether he goes to where, he is free. Let him consult the way we are also, my brothers are saying, we send diplomats to different countries. I mean, we encourage foreign collaborations. Okay. There is no country that can do with foreign collaborations, both the opposition and then government. I think you remember actually the day Bobi Wine entered America, one of the U.S. Army generals was here at State House discussing with President Museveni on security issues, on how Uganda should relate with the United States on security issues.
Okay, you made your point, Honorable. Mr. Richard Byamukama, when you look at Uganda, Richard, are we like at the political crossroad right now?
Definitely. You see, transitional times are very delicate. What he says that as the
You know,
NRM.
you know he's a member of the NRM
I'm
party.
a member of the NRM
But
too.
he's an elected
no,
member,
you are
of-
not.
so at least he's a bit senior, and he thinks there's no
Yeah,
transition is not
for-
even there.
For your card.
You see,
I don't know where you're getting. I don't know where Richard, but you're getting the transition the talk.
you see,
Because
Patrick,
the guys in the inner sanctum are saying no.
To give
See,
him more
Patrick,
information.
transition is a
Richard, before you
national
start.
issue. It is not
Before
an
you start.
NRM issue. So even though my brothers in the
Richard,
NUP or UPC
Richard,
have a right to discuss about
we have
transition.
just
So it
signed.
is not exclusively for us in the NRM only. It is a national issue. So the entire citizens should talk about transition. It should not be
No, in a
limited to
democratic
us.
country, we don't talk about. Let me give you information, my brother. In a democratic country like this, we don't talk about transitions. We have just signed a social contract with the people of Uganda, actually, which is going to be confirmed on the swearing-in ceremony of President Museveni on 12th of May, which is 2 weeks from now, or a few days from now. So after 5 years, we are going to go back into the battlefield. We carry out an election to determine who is going to be the president of Uganda for the next 5 years. That will be another term from 2031 going forward. And also as MPs, we are going to affirm our social contract on 13th, starting on 13th. Me, I'm swearing in on 13th of May. That is when I'm going to start serving the people of Blambuli. And things of transition, please let us, that should be in the autocratic countries that you have been mentioning.
Thank you
But
so
for
much.
us in Uganda,
So-
we know our president is Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. We have given him 5 years, and then after 5 years, we are going to look around, both at party level, whether we shall make him our flag bearer, and then also eventual
So thank you so
candidate
much.
for
So
president.
it is very unfortunate, and you see, it is very unfortunate if we limit the country from discussing an uncertain and delicate issue like transition. You see, Patrick, countries that have failed to discuss transitions, read about Joseph Tito of Yugoslavia. So Yugoslavia under
Which disappeared.
Definitely. Read about Libya under Colonel Muammar Gaddafi. So the problem of not discussing transition is very delicate. So as a country, we should not limit discussing about transition to us, the NRM. So it is an issue that has to be discussed by the entire citizens of this country. So as you asked me, yes, Uganda, we are at crossroads. We have, you see, as I told you in my preamble, longevity of regimes comes with very uncertain dynamics.
Okay.
So proclivity to coups when the moment a regime takes longer in power. You see, my brother here thinks like we, the NRM, shall govern Uganda indefinitely. Not at all. So we can't rule indefinitely. So there shall be a time.
It's going to be at the end of an era.
Definitely. You read about the True Whig Party of Liberia. So it ruled Liberia for a record that no party has ever disqualified. So it ruled Liberia for over 127 years. But eventually, in 1980, it was overthrown by a master sergeant,
Samuel Doe.
a low-ranking military officer.
Okay.
So for Uganda, it is not exceptional. We are not exceptional. So as long as we don't discuss the issue of transition, we are living under delicate circumstances, and as long as we limit to ourselves in the NRM, so we are likely to face a lot of uncertainty.
Okay, let me, as we try to come to the conclusion of our discussion tonight, Jude, when you take a mental flight in the future, in the next 5 years, and in terms of legislation, in terms of governance, what do you see?
I think the future is looking very bleak and worrying. When you see a parliament that is left with 10 days to complete its tenure and its it chooses to sign out by attempting to pass one of the most obnoxious pieces of legislation, then you wonder what's going to happen when our brother Honorable Emmanuel and team take over. Increasingly, in the last almost 18 months, we had the UPDF Amendment Act. Then now we have tried to add a sovereignty bill. There is a trend in which increasingly there appears to be a rollback on constitutional rights that citizens have by Parliament enacting laws that are simply designed to clamp down on rights. In a space of barely 3 years, we had the Computer Misuse Act. What was the target? Stop citizens from engaging on social media, stop them from abusing, as they said, abusing the elected. But before we know it, the law was being used basically to clamp down on the ability of people to express themselves online. And then, as the court is striking it down, another unconstitutional law is quickly enacted. And then before we know it, the sovereignty bill also comes. And you see, when we look at the leadership of Parliament, we don't know. But the trajectory appears to be that, these are the kinds of bills that the leadership in Parliament gives priority. Are these bills creating a more stable and just society in Uganda? Or are they instead sowing roots of instability? Because, when you make it difficult for citizens to engage, to criticize government policies, that's one of the other themes we have not discussed, by the way. There is a clause in this bill prohibiting what they call economic sabotage, but you see that the clause is designed to stop citizens from criticizing what they are calling government policies. I believe one of the complaints around that area was, for example, some pockets of civil society who are opposed to ECOP. And some youths were even convicted before a magistrate's court and sentenced to 9 months imprisonment over that. But you see, citizens can have views which may even be wrong. They can have views which may even be foolish. It's dangerous for the government of that day to start passing laws whose purpose is to criminalize views that are unpopular or views that they consider to be wrong.
Okay.
Now, when you look at that whole area of economic sabotage, that was going to mean that if government has what they call a program, we can't criticize it. If the president says, I'm giving $1 billion to a certain pharmaceutical factory in Matuga, if as a citizen I think that whole thing is a scam, I can't say so because that might be interpreted as economic sabotage.
There's a pharmaceutical company in Matuga for you.
Yes. So there are, yes, I gave the example deliberately. So I think we need to be very careful. So there is that theme, again, in the sovereignty bill, that this is not about sovereignty. There is that underlying theme of make it difficult for citizens to express their views about things. And that's extremely dangerous, and that shows you that the path which we are taking is clamping down on the ability of citizens to vigorously engage with the government, the way people have done with this bill. I think it's healthy. I do not think the president is annoyed that because citizens have spoken up. I believe Honorable also has liked it, that people have spoken up. But you see, laws are being passed precisely to outlaw and criminalize that kind of engagement between citizens and the state.
All right.
And that, therefore, is a cause for worry.
Thank you, and that's your parting shot. Let me ask Bad to give us your concluding remark.
Thank you so much, Patrick. To me, in my closing remarks, I believe in under rule of law, the government should pass laws. I don't believe, and I condemn any parliament that that is there to pass laws that are against the citizens. So we are elected by the will of the people to go and represent the people. So we can't go ahead and pass such laws that are against the people, that are targeting the rights of the people. Definitely, that are making citizens, foreigners, in their foreign land. So you see, we are citizens of this country. We are born here. We don't have any other country of origin unless the civilization shifts to another country, or if we shift or we migrate to, we go back to the Bantu migration. So we were born here. So it is an inherent right. Okay. So you can't remove that right from me. So a parliament that passes laws that are against citizens is not worth being called a parliament.
Thank you very much. Emmanuel, your concluding remark.
Yeah, thank you very much. People might think this sovereignty bill, with the clarity and balance that President Museveni has advised, they might think it is for us, the ruling government now. No, it is this law even after us leaving power as the NRM party. It will continue to serve Ugandans, to protect it from foreign influences, so that decisions are made from here, policies are made from here without the influence of foreigners. And conclusively, therefore, we are just saying we want a sovereignty bill which is without hostility and independence. That means we don't want to isolate others, but let us work with them while respecting the decisions of us elected leaders. And conclusively, also on the issue of transition, Kamara. That's why I don't want to talk about other parties which I don't belong to, like the PLU, but you saw that the expected candidate, as mentioned by Richard, our CDF, who is a serving member of government, didn't even appear on some of, actually the dinner and then the run, and he acted very brilliantly, because as people are wishing that he comes, for us also we are still saying Mzee is around. Anybody who wants to become the president of Uganda after this social contract of the five coming years should go back to the public, look for the votes, and then if it is anybody, even you, Kamara, even my councils here are encouraged, once they are voted for, we shall recognize them as
First
the
of
next
all, I must state that each one of us here, and including General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, has the right to run for any office he so wishes.
Exactly.
Yes, I'm saying at one point he has the right to do that. But also we should also be mindful, none of us here chose our fathers.
Exactly.
Even General Kainerugaba never chose his father. Like we never chose our own.
There will be no transition of just handing over power to him, but we shall go. He will resign. Myself, I was a government worker. I resigned as per the public standing orders, and then I went for election and they voted for me. And then he will do that. If he comes, Ugandans will look through him, and if he's voted, no problem.
Gentlemen, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Jude Byamukama. You always add value to this discussion. I've liked everything you put up across, Mr. Richard Bad Byamukama. I think he's the new kid on the block. You should be coming quite often. We are going to see, because when we see somebody from the inner sanctum of the party but thinking the other way, we're like, okay, we need to hear such voices. And of course, the Honorable Emmanuel Wepukulu, MP-elect for Bulambuli. Bulambuli has just sent us another bomb. Thank you very much. And maybe let me end with this truism. For every politician, they always work hard to acquire power. And when they acquire it, they work hard to retain power. But it's also true, power eventually disappears. Good night and God bless Uganda.